Why are you running from me, human? My answer left the alien woman silent. Eli Parker had never seen a place like this. The planet stretched endlessly under a pale green sky, jagged mountains rising like frozen waves, their peaks glowing faintly with an inner light. Strange plants, taller than a man, swayed as if they were alive in the gentle wind, their translucent leaves shimmering in colors Eli had no names for. The ground beneath his boots was soft, almost sponge-like, and the air carried a sharp metallic tang that made him breathe carefully. His mission was simple on paper: survey the ruins of an alien settlement recently discovered on this planet, gather data, and return. In reality, he knew it was anything but simple. Humans had a history with alien civilizations, some of it unpleasant. The stories of lost colonies, destroyed ships, and entire worlds abandoned to alien conquerors ran in his mind like warnings. Yet here he was, stepping cautiously between the glowing flora, a scanner in one hand and a data pad in the other. He paused for a moment, listening. Silence stretched around him, thick and heavy, but in that silence there was something else, a presence. It wasn't the wind or the faint hum of the planet's energy. It was conscious. It was watching. Eli's heart beat faster. He had trained for encounters like this, but nothing prepared him for the sensation of being studied, as if every movement he made was measured and recorded. He moved forward slowly, his eyes scanning, trying to find the source. Then he saw her. She stepped from between two jagged rocks, her figure tall and elegant, almost floating. Her skin glowed faintly with patterns that shifted like liquid light, tracing strange symbols across her body. Her eyes were wide and bright, larger than any human eyes, and they held a depth that made Eli swallow hard. She didn't look angry or threatening, not in any way he could name, but there was a force about her presence that froze him in place. "Why are you running from me, human?" Her voice was musical, calm, but it carried authority. Every word seemed to echo in the air around him, not loud, but impossible to ignore. Eli blinked. He wanted to speak, to answer, but the words caught in his throat. He wasn't running, at least not yet, but instinct screamed at him that moving closer could be dangerous. His mind raced through scenarios. She could be a scout for a hostile civilization, a warrior trained to capture humans, or something beyond his comprehension. He remembered the stories again, the warnings, and the centuries of fear that humans carried about being hunted in space. I'm not running," he said finally, his voice uneven. It sounded weak even to him, her eyes did not leave him. "Then why do you hesitate?" she asked, her tone more curious than threatening. Eli's mind struggled for a response. He wanted to tell her the truth, but truth could be dangerous. Humans were clever, yes, but cautious, trained to survive. He needed to assess her to understand what she wanted. I'm cautious," he said at last. "I need to understand who I am dealing with." The alien woman tilted her head slightly, as if amused, though Eli couldn't read the expression. Then she stepped forward, gliding over the uneven ground in a way that made it seem like she barely touched it. The patterns on her skin shifted faster now, brightening in response to her movement. Eli realized she was studying him as much as he was studying her. Every decision, every micro-expression, every pause he made, she noticed. Panic prickled at the back of his neck. Human instinct was screaming at him to move, to run, to put space between himself and this being who seemed both dangerous and impossibly powerful. He glanced around quickly. The terrain was uneven, and if he tried to run, he might slip or stumble. Still, the thought of staying felt worse. Every fiber of his body wanted to survive, and survival for humans often meant action. He made a choice. He bolted. Eli's boots sank into the soft ground as he ran, leaping over roots and glowing moss, trying to put as much distance as possible between himself and the alien woman. She moved effortlessly behind him, her pace constant, unhurried, almost casual. Yet with every step he took, Eli felt the weight of her gaze, felt her presence closing in despite the distance. Branches snagged his jacket and scraped his arms, but he didn't slow. The forest around him seemed alive with energy, almost as if it responded to his fear. Shadows shifted and danced, and the glowing plants pulsed with light that made it difficult to judge distance. Eli's lungs burned, his legs ached, but adrenaline kept him moving, sharp and aware. Occasionally, she spoke. Her words were soft, melodic, but each one carried clarity. "Do you think running will save you?" she asked once, her voice drifting through the air like a song. Eli didn't answer, not out of defiance, but because he couldn't. Words felt too small for the moment, too slow to keep up with his mind racing for survival. He paused briefly behind a tall rock formation, catching his breath. The alien woman stopped too, just a few meters beyond, silent now. Eli could see her glowing eyes fixed on him. It was unsettling, and yet, despite his fear, curiosity began to creep in. Who was she? Why wasn't she attacking? Why was she following? Eli's mind turned over the possibilities. Humans were clever and adaptable, but they were also predictable in their instincts. If she wanted to harm him, he might already be dead. Yet here she was, patient, observing, waiting. It wasn't aggression that defined her. It was interest. Slowly, carefully, Eli started to move again, this time not running but stepping sideways, trying to put obstacles between them. Each movement was measured, deliberate, an experiment. He wanted to see her reaction, to understand her intent. She mirrored his movements in a way that seemed almost effortless. The further they went, the more Eli realized that this was not a hunt in the traditional sense. It was a test, a study. Hours seemed to pass. The forest opened up into a valley, the ground littered with alien ruins, tall, crystalline structures, some half-buried, others still standing with strange carvings that pulsed faintly. Eli's breath caught. The ruins were magnificent, unlike anything humans had built, and yet there was something familiar in the symmetry, the logic of the structures. He wondered if this civilization had once been like humanity, curious, ambitious, and clever. The alien woman glided to the center of the ruins and turned toward him. Her light patterns shifted rapidly, like a silent language. She spoke, softer this time. "Why do you fear me?" Eli swallowed. The question was simple, yet impossible. Fear was instinctual, primal, and ingrained in humans over millennia of survival. I don't know," he admitted finally. "Maybe because humans have been hunted before. Maybe because I've been trained to survive first, understand later." Her gaze did not waver. For a moment she said nothing. The silence stretched between them, heavy and thoughtful. Eli felt an odd mixture of relief and apprehension. He was still alive. She hadn't attacked. She had not threatened. And yet he couldn't shake the feeling that everything hinged on what happened next. Then she moved closer, not quickly, but with a presence that made him instinctively take a step back. "Your answer," she whispered, almost to herself. "It is unlike what I expected." Eli felt a chill. What did that mean? Was she confused, impressed, or preparing to strike? He had no way of knowing, and fear clawed at him again. His mind raced, trying to find a safe path forward. He considered retreating further into the ruins, but instinct told him that running blindly could be dangerous. She had followed him this far without resistance, suggesting she had control, power, and patience in ways he couldn't yet comprehend. He made another choice one humans rarely made when faced with fear. He stopped running. He squared his shoulders and met her gaze. "I run," he said slowly, choosing each word carefully, "because I respect life, mine, yours, and everyone else. I want to survive, yes, but I also want to understand, not to fight." The alien woman's glowing patterns shifted, flickering like fire. She did not speak immediately. Eli waited, holding his ground, feeling the tension of the moment stretch like a wire between them. Then, almost imperceptibly, she tilted her head. Silence fell again, heavier this time, not threatening, but full of curiosity. Eli realized he had done something humans rarely achieved with aliens. He had spoken truth without fear or submission, and without aggression. He had shown that humanity was clever and cautious, but also capable of honesty and respect even in the face of the unknown. She took a step back, slowly, deliberately. For the first time, Eli noticed something in her eyes, surprise. Perhaps humans rarely spoke with such measured intent, such fearless honesty. Her gaze softened slightly, and though she remained silent, the tension between them changed. It was no longer predator and prey. It was observer and observed, study and subject, curiosity and wonder. Eli breathed in deeply. For the first time, he felt a spark of hope. Perhaps this encounter would not end in conflict. Perhaps humans could teach this alien something about courage, about truth, about the value of understanding over fear. And perhaps, just perhaps, the galaxy would see once again why humans should never be underestimated. Eli could feel his heart pounding as he moved through the alien forest. The light from the glowing plants cast strange shadows across the ground, making it difficult to judge distance or depth. Each step was careful, deliberate, but he couldn't stop the rush of adrenaline that had his blood racing. Behind him, he could feel her presence, calm, silent, but always there. The alien woman, Leora, seemed to glide effortlessly across the terrain, her glowing patterns pulsing softly like a heartbeat, following him without haste yet never losing pace. Eli's mind raced. Why wasn't she attacking? Why did she simply watch, curious and patient, instead of striking? He remembered the words he had spoken moments ago, the truth he had dared to voice. I run because I respect life. Mine, yours, and everyone's. I want to survive, yes, but I also want to understand, not fight. That truth had shaken her, he thought, though he couldn't be sure why. Perhaps humans had surprised her before, but Eli hoped it was more than just surprise. He hoped it had sparked curiosity, respect, or even understanding. Eli pressed on, weaving through the towering plants and jagged rocks. The air was thick and humid, carrying a metallic tang, and he could hear the faint hum of alien energy pulsing from the ruins scattered across the valley. Every sound seemed amplified, the rustle of leaves, the creak of branches, the soft glow of life beneath the ground. It was beautiful, alien, and terrifying all at once. Suddenly, a branch snapped under his foot, and he froze. The faint sound echoed through the forest like a drumbeat. Leora's presence was immediately closer, as if she had reacted to it before he even noticed. He could feel her gaze piercing through him, assessing, measuring, understanding. Eli swallowed hard, forcing himself to stay calm. He had trained for high-pressure situations, but nothing could prepare him for being pursued by a being that didn't act like predator or prey. You think hiding will protect you? Leora's voice drifted through the air, soft and melodic, yet impossible to ignore. Why do you fear what you do not know? Eli swallowed again. The question was not just about her, he realized. It was about all of humanity, the instinct to fear the unknown, to flee before understanding. He wanted to answer, but words felt inadequate. Instead, he continued moving, careful not to make sudden or obvious gestures. The forest began to thin, opening into a valley that stretched far ahead, dotted with streams of glowing liquid light that flowed like rivers. Eli's boots sank slightly into the soft, luminous soil as he ran. He glanced back briefly and caught a glimpse of Leora standing at the edge of the forest, her patterns glowing brighter, almost like a signal. Her gaze followed him, steady and unwavering. There was no malice in it, yet it made Eli feel exposed, as though every thought, every instinct, every strategy he had was visible to her. He paused for a moment at the edge of a river of glowing light, watching it flow in mesmerizing currents. It was beautiful, otherworldly, and for a second he forgot his fear. He knelt down and dipped his hand into the liquid. It was warm, almost comforting, and it left a faint glow on his skin that faded slowly. He marveled at it, letting himself breathe for a moment, but he knew he couldn't stay. Leora would be here any moment. As he turned to continue, he realized she was there. Not behind him, not across the river, but right there, standing on the opposite bank. Her presence was calm, almost serene, and she watched him with an intensity that made him hold his breath. "Why do you run, human?" she asked again. Eli shook his head slightly. "I run because it is what I have been trained to do," he said, keeping his voice steady. "Humans survive by being careful, by understanding before acting. I want to know what you are, not what you want from me." Her patterns shifted rapidly, brightening and fading in a rhythm that Eli almost thought was a language. She tilted her head, and for a moment, Eli felt a strange sense of connection. It was as if she were trying to understand him, trying to read not just his words, but his intentions, his fears, his thoughts. "You are different," she said finally, almost to herself. "Your species, I expected fear or aggression or lies, but you are honest." Eli felt a strange warmth at her words, though he didn't relax. Trust was a luxury in situations like this. "Honesty does not mean weakness," he said quietly. "Humans survive because we adapt, because we are clever, because we can face the unknown without losing ourselves." Her gaze lingered on him, and for a moment, Eli felt something shift in the air between them. He realized that she was not pursuing him out of malice. She was observing, studying, perhaps even learning. The realization was both comforting and frightening. If she wanted to harm him, he would already be in danger. Instead, she seemed fascinated by his choices, his courage, his defiance tempered by respect. The ground ahead began to rise into a series of rocky hills, jagged and steep. Eli's legs burned from running, but he knew he had to keep moving. He looked for paths that would give him an advantage, routes that would challenge his pursuer. But as he scrambled over the rocks, he noticed that Leora adapted effortlessly to the terrain. She did not climb or leap as humans did. She moved with a fluidity that seemed to defy gravity, almost as if the ground itself acknowledged her presence. He paused at the crest of a hill, taking a moment to catch his breath and observe. The valley below stretched endlessly, dotted with alien ruins, glowing rivers, and strange, floating lights that drifted lazily in the distance. He realized that he had no clear idea where he was going. Every path seemed equally dangerous and equally beautiful. Every moment he felt the weight of being observed, the weight of being tested. Leora approached slowly, her patterns glowing brighter with each step. "Do you think running proves your strength, human?" she asked, her voice carrying a note of curiosity. Eli considered his answer carefully. "Running is not weakness," he said finally. "It is survival, but understanding, courage, and knowing when to stand, that is strength." She was silent for a long moment, and Eli wondered if he had said too much, or if he had said too little. Then she moved closer, almost imperceptibly, and Eli realized he was no longer sure who was studying whom. The lines between hunter and prey, observer and observed, had blurred. A sudden movement in the distance caught Eli's eye. A flock of strange, bird-like creatures rose into the air, their wings reflecting the green light of the sky. He watched them for a moment, fascinated, and then realized he had been too distracted. Leora was closer than he thought. He could feel the energy around her, the subtle hum that seemed to vibrate through the ground. He straightened, ready to move again, but something stopped him. For the first time, he felt the possibility that he did not need to run. That perhaps, in this encounter, survival did not mean fleeing. Perhaps it meant understanding, communication, even trust. The thought was frightening. Humans survived through caution, but they also survived through courage. And courage, Eli realized, was not the absence of fear, but the willingness to face it. Leora spoke again, softer this time, almost a whisper. "You are unlike any human I have known. You are cautious, yes, but you do not hide. You fear, yet you face. You run, yet you observe." "Why?" Eli took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. "Because I respect life," he said again. "Because I want to survive, yes, but I also want to understand, to learn, to see the world as it is, not just as a threat or a challenge. That is what humans do. That is how we endure." Her patterns flickered, shifting rapidly, and for the first time Eli thought he saw hesitation. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it was there. The alien woman, so confident and composed moments ago, seemed momentarily unsure. Eli's heart skipped a beat. Perhaps he had reached her, in a way that humans rarely reached alien minds, through honesty, courage, and respect. They moved together now, not as pursuer and pursued, but as two beings navigating the alien landscape. Leora mirrored his movements, gliding over obstacles effortlessly, while Eli adapted with human ingenuity, leaping, climbing, and finding paths through the difficult terrain. Each step brought them closer, not in threat, but in understanding. As night began to fall, the valley below was transformed. The glowing rivers shimmered brighter, casting reflections that danced across the ruins. The air cooled, and Eli felt a sense of awe that momentarily pushed aside his fear. He had survived this far, not through strength alone, but through the qualities that made humans remarkable: adaptability, courage, and the ability to face the unknown with respect and intelligence. Leora stopped on a high ridge, her patterns glowing softly in the dim light. She turned to him, her voice gentle but firm. "You are brave, human, perhaps braver than you know." Eli felt a surge of relief and something else, a cautious hope. He realized that this encounter, which had begun as a flight for survival, was changing. The fear that had driven him was giving way to curiosity, to understanding, to the possibility of connection. And in that moment, he understood that survival was not just about fleeing or hiding. It was about facing the unknown with courage, honesty, and respect. That was humanity. That was why humans endured, why they thrived, and why they were never to be underestimated. He looked at Leora, her glowing patterns pulsing softly, and realized that she was learning the same lesson. That in his fear, his courage, and his honesty, she was seeing something remarkable. Something that perhaps even her species had forgotten. The strength that lay not in domination, but in understanding, in intellect, and in the unyielding human spirit. The night deepened around them, the alien forest alive with soft light and quiet movement. Eli and Leora stood together, observing the world around them, two beings from different stars, learning from one another, and moving toward a future that neither could yet fully imagine. Eli stood at the edge of the glowing valley, his chest still heaving from the long trek. through the alien forest. The air was thick and strange, filled with soft hums and flickers of light from the bioluminescent plants around him. Leora remained nearby, a few meters away, her glowing patterns shifting gently in the dim light. She did not move toward him, and yet he could feel her attention in every direction he turned. For a moment, Eli allowed himself to breathe. He had survived so far not by strength, not by weapon, but by thought, courage, and the simple human instinct to understand. "Why do you hesitate, human?" Leora asked, her voice soft, almost melodic, but still carrying the weight of authority. Eli shook his head. "It's not hesitation," he said carefully. "It's calculation. I have to understand who I'm dealing with. I need to know what you are and what you want." Leora tilted her head slightly. "And yet you have already run from me. Do you not trust yourself? Or me?" Eli thought for a moment, choosing his words carefully. "I trust myself to survive. I trust you. I don't know yet. That's why I run. Running does not mean fear. It means respect. Respect for my life and respect for yours." For a long moment, Leora said nothing. The silence stretched between them, thick and heavy, yet strangely calm. Eli felt a sense of tension that was almost alive, as if the valley itself held its breath. He knew that every decision he made in the next moments would shape this encounter in ways he could not yet imagine. Finally, Leora spoke again, softer this time. "You are different from what I expected. Most humans, they fight, they hide, they lie. You do not. You are cautious, yes, but you are honest. That is rare." Eli's chest swelled slightly at her words, though he remained wary. "Honesty is not weakness," he said quietly. "Humans survive because we think, because we adapt, and because we face the unknown with respect. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is acting despite it." Leora's glowing patterns shifted faster, bright pulses of color sweeping across her skin. For the first time, Eli thought he saw curiosity mixed with something else, something like surprise. Her species must not have expected a human to speak with such clarity, such honesty, and such confidence in their own abilities. Eli wondered what she thought of him now. They moved together through the valley, Eli walking carefully over the uneven ground, Leora gliding effortlessly. The streams of glowing liquid light reflected in her eyes, and the ruins scattered around them seemed almost alive, like they were holding their breath along with the two of them. Eli studied the structures as they passed, noticing patterns and designs that suggested intelligence, culture, and perhaps even art. He realized that this civilization had once been capable of great things, just as humanity was. "You study everything," Leora said suddenly, her voice breaking the silence. "Even while fleeing." Eli smiled faintly. "Observation is part of survival," he said. "You notice things, you learn, you adapt. Humans are the same. We survive because we pay attention. We survive because we think ahead, even when danger is near." She regarded him silently, her glowing patterns shifting more slowly now, as if she were processing his words. "You are, unlike your kind. Most humans would fight first, ask questions later. You do the opposite. Why?" "Because survival is more than fighting," Eli said. "It is thinking, adapting, and understanding. Strength is not only in the body, but in the mind, in the heart." He paused, noticing her attention sharpening, her eyes reflecting interest and caution. "Humans are clever, yes. We are strong, yes, but we survive because we are careful, because we respect life, because we know when to act and when to wait." For a long moment, Leora was silent. Then she said, almost in a whisper, "Perhaps I have underestimated you." Eli's pulse quickened. Those words were not just an observation, they were a recognition. Recognition that humans were not just prey, not just survivors, but intelligent, capable beings who could face the unknown with courage and wisdom. Eli felt a spark of hope. Perhaps this encounter could end not in fear or conflict, but in understanding. The valley opened into a larger plain, dotted with more ruins and strange, floating lights. Eli could see the remains of structures that might have been homes, or places of learning, or centers of governance. The patterns carved into the walls glowed faintly, as if holding memories of the past. He realized that this civilization had been advanced, intelligent, and proud. Yet here they were, abandoned, their legacy waiting for someone to understand it. Leora moved closer, her gaze focused on him. "Most humans would have fled this far, and yet you continue. You are persistent, tenacious. That is a quality I respect." Eli nodded, keeping his eyes on the ruins around him. "Persistence is survival. Tenacity is understanding. Humans endure because we adapt, we learn, and we never give up." Even when everything is unknown, even when danger surrounds us, we move forward. She tilted her head again, her glowing patterns shifting in intricate designs that Eli could not comprehend. You speak with conviction. Most humans speak with fear, even when they are brave. You do not. Eli's mind turned over her words. It was not just bravery she recognized, it was the human spirit. Humans did not only survive, they endured, adapted, and grew stronger through every challenge. Leora had not just noticed his honesty or courage. She had noticed humanity itself. As they moved further across the plain, Eli realized he was learning as much about her as she was about him. Her presence was calm, her movements precise, yet she was curious. She did not seek to harm him, yet she tested him, observed him, measured his reactions. It was a kind of intelligence that was different from human intelligence, yet equally impressive. You are studying me as well, Eli said suddenly. You are curious. You want to know what humans are capable of. She did not answer immediately. Instead, she moved to a nearby structure, her fingers brushing the glowing walls lightly. The carvings responded to her touch, illuminating more brightly, revealing patterns and symbols that seemed to pulse with knowledge. Eli stepped closer, fascinated. What is this place? He asked quietly. It is a memory, she said, her voice soft. A record of what once was. My people, we keep our history here, we preserve it. Humans, you are part of it now in ways I did not expect. Eli felt a chill run through him. To be part of the history of a civilization so advanced, so intelligent, was both awe-inspiring and humbling. Yet he knew that being remembered, or studied, was not the same as being understood. That required trust, communication, and courage. Then let me show you what humans are, he said quietly. Not just my courage, not just my intelligence, but our spirit. Our ability to endure, to adapt, to learn from the unknown. That is who we are. Leora's patterns shifted again, brighter now, almost like she was considering his words. You speak boldly, she said. Most humans would not, most would fear or lie or fight. You are honest. Brave and remarkable. Eli felt a surge of hope. Here in this alien place, under a strange sky, facing a being who could have been a predator or judge, he had found recognition, not for himself, but for humanity. He had shown that humans were clever, courageous, and capable of understanding, even when fear was all around. As the night deepened, the ruins began to glow softly, illuminating the valley in a gentle, golden light. Eli and Leora stood together, observing the structures, the rivers of light, and the memories of a civilization long past. For the first time, Eli felt a sense of calm. He had survived the chase, proven his courage, and spoken the truth of what it meant to be human. Leora stepped closer, her presence no longer threatening, but quiet, curious, and almost reverent. You are unlike any human I have known, she said softly. Perhaps your species is more capable than we imagined. Eli smiled faintly, feeling the weight of her words. Humanity had endured countless challenges, faced dangers far greater than this, and yet they survived. They adapted, they learned, and they grew stronger, even in the face of the unknown. Leora's recognition was not just personal, it was a testament to the enduring spirit of his kind. He looked at her, her glowing patterns reflecting in his eyes, and realized that the encounter was changing. Fear was giving way to understanding. The unknown was becoming less terrifying, and the possibility of connection, of alliance, was opening before him. You see now, Eli said quietly, why humans endure, not because we are the strongest or the fastest or the fiercest, but because we think, we adapt, we respect life, and we face the unknown with courage. That is humanity. Leora regarded him in silence, her gaze deep and unreadable. Then slowly she reached out a hand, not in threat, but in acknowledgement. Her patterns glowed softly, pulsing in a rhythm that seemed to match the heartbeat of the valley itself. Eli took a step forward, then another, closing the distance between them. He did not know what would come next, but he understood that this moment was a turning point. Survival had brought him here, but understanding would carry him further. Humanity had endured not just by fleeing or fighting, but by learning, adapting, and standing firm in the face of the unknown. And in that moment, Eli realized that Leora was beginning to see the same truth. That humanity was not merely a species to be observed, feared, or underestimated, but a force of intelligence, courage, and resilience that could not be ignored. The valley stretched out before them, glowing softly under the alien sky, filled with the remnants of a civilization long past and the possibility of a future yet to be written. Eli and Leora stood together, two beings from different worlds, learning from one another, and moving toward a destiny neither could yet fully imagine. Eli followed Leora through the glowing ruins, each step filled with cautious curiosity. The valley stretched endlessly around them, its streams of liquid light casting strange, dancing reflections across the walls of ancient alien structures. Leora moved effortlessly ahead, her patterns pulsing softly, lighting a path through corridors that seemed older than time itself. Eli marveled at the scale of the place. The carvings on the walls shifted subtly as he walked past, like they were responding to his presence, telling stories that humans could barely comprehend. "This place," Eli said quietly, "it's incredible. These structures, they're more advanced than anything we've seen before." "Did your people build all of this?" Leora paused, turning her glowing gaze toward him. "Yes, but it is not just our work. It is the history of what we became, of the knowledge we preserved, and of the civilizations we observed and learned from. Everything here has purpose. Everything here carries memory." Eli stepped closer to a wall covered in intricate symbols. He ran his fingers over the grooves, feeling the energy hum beneath his touch. "Memory?" he asked. "Like stories, records?" "Yes," Leora said. "The walls remember, they do not forget. They hold not just what we did, but what we learned, what we feared, and what we valued. We preserve this so that future generations, or visitors, may understand us." She glanced at him, her expression unreadable. "And perhaps, humans, you are meant to learn as well." Eli's eyes widened. He had not expected this. "You mean this is for me? For humans?" Leora's glowing patterns shifted rapidly, almost like a smile. "Perhaps humans are different. Your kind survives in ways we did not anticipate. You endure not just through strength, but through intellect, courage, and spirit. That is worth understanding." Eli took a deep breath, feeling a mix of awe and pride. He had faced countless dangers as a human explorer, but this was unlike anything he had ever encountered. A civilization so advanced, so intelligent, and yet willing to share knowledge with someone like him. He realized that this was more than a test of survival, it was an opportunity. They entered a large chamber filled with floating platforms, each carrying glowing artifacts and holographic displays that pulsed with light. Eli felt as if he had stepped into the heart of the alien civilization. Streams of information moved through the air, revealing histories of planets, species, and events that humans had never imagined. He moved carefully between the platforms, absorbing what he could, realizing that this knowledge was priceless. "Your people feared humans," Leora said suddenly. "Long ago, when our civilizations first encountered one another, your kind surprised us. You adapted, overcame, endured, and survived where others would have failed. That is why I have watched you. That is why I follow you." Eli nodded slowly, understanding dawning. "You feared us because we are unpredictable. We survive because we think, adapt, and face challenges head-on. That is humanity." "Yes," Leora said. "Your spirit, your courage, your mind, it is unlike anything we anticipated. Most species can be measured, controlled, or predicted. Humans, you are not so easily contained." Eli smiled faintly, a quiet pride rising within him. "We are capable of more than most expect. We survive because we think, because we care, because we never give up. And we endure even when the odds are against us." Leora studied him for a long moment, her glowing patterns flickering in subtle rhythms. "Perhaps humans deserve to be understood, not feared. Perhaps it is time we reconsidered what we assumed about your kind." They moved deeper into the chamber, where a massive display illuminated the walls. Eli stepped closer, and the images shifted to reveal events from the past. Humans exploring new worlds, building colonies, overcoming hardships, and thriving despite challenges. He watched, fascinated, as his own people's history unfolded, intertwined with records from alien civilizations. Leora's gaze followed him, curious and attentive. "Humans have endured so much," she said softly, "and yet you continue to grow, to explore, to learn. That is remarkable." Eli felt a sense of connection, not just to her, but to his species as a whole. Humanity had faced countless dangers, and yet here they were, surviving, exploring, and leaving their mark on the galaxy. He realized that this encounter with Leora was not just personal, it was symbolic. It represented the resilience, intelligence, and spirit of all humans. He turned to her, determination in his eyes. "I want to show you more. Not just the strength of humans, but our values, our creativity, our courage, and our willingness to understand the unknown. That is who we are. That is why humans endure. Leora's patterns pulsed brighter as if acknowledging his words. Then show me, human. Let us see what your kind is truly capable of. For hours, they moved through the archives together. Eli explored artifacts, interpreted symbols, and shared human perspectives on courage, ingenuity, and compassion. Leora listened, sometimes silent, sometimes asking questions that challenged his understanding. The more he spoke, the more she seemed to realize that humanity's greatest strength was not just survival, but the ability to think, to adapt, and to act with both intelligence and integrity. At one point, Eli found a holographic display showing humans helping alien species in distant galaxies, fostering peace, building communities, and solving problems that had seemed impossible. We endure not through conquest, he said quietly, but through understanding, cooperation, and learning from the unknown. Leora studied the display, her patterns shifting slowly. You are extraordinary, she said softly. Your people, perhaps we have underestimated what humans can do. Perhaps we feared the wrong things. Eli smiled, feeling the weight of her words. Humanity had survived, not just through strength or numbers, but through courage, intelligence, and the ability to face the unknown with clarity and compassion. Leora's recognition was not just personal. It was an acknowledgement of what humans represented. As night settled over the alien valley, Eli and Leora stood together, observing the glowing structures and rivers of light. The silence was not empty. It was filled with understanding, connection, and mutual respect. Eli realized that this moment was transformative. Humanity had proven itself not through battle but through honesty, courage, and spirit. You see now, Eli said quietly, why humans endure. We survive not because we are the strongest or fastest, but because we think, we adapt, and we face the unknown with courage. That is humanity. Leora regarded him silently, her glowing patterns flickering in soft acknowledgement. Yes, she said finally, I see it now. Perhaps humans are worthy of trust, respect, and understanding. Eli felt hope swell within him. Humanity had endured, survived, and now perhaps it had been recognized by a species that had once feared them. This was more than survival. This was recognition, understanding, and the possibility of alliance. As they left the archives and stepped into the glowing valley once more, Eli realized that their journey was far from over. But for the first time, he understood that humanity's greatest strength was not in fleeing, fighting, or hiding. It was in courage, intelligence, and the ability to face the unknown with honesty and respect. Surith stood near the wide viewport of the station, watching the slow drift of stars. The emergency lights were gone now, replaced by the normal calm glow of the trade hub. Everything had returned to routine, yet her thoughts refused to settle. Around her, other species moved on, speaking of repairs, reports, and schedules. For Surith, something far more important had shifted. She replayed the memory again and again. The moment of crisis, the sudden failure of systems, the panic that froze so many of her people, and the human. Elias Mar had not shouted, he had not waited, he had moved. When the alarms had sounded, Surith remembered feeling her limbs lock in place. Her species evolved without predators, without sudden danger. Their response to threats was discussion, consensus, procedure. But the threat had not waited for procedure. The station had begun to fail, and life support in an outer ring had dropped to critical levels. Elias had already been running, not away this time. Toward. Surith had chased him again, but now she understood what she was seeing. He ran with purpose, with awareness. He noticed loose panels before they fell, sealed doors before pressure dropped, injured workers before alarms flagged them. He made decisions without stopping, adjusting every step as conditions changed. Other humans had joined him, engineers, pilots, medical staff. None of them waited for orders. They acted, communicated in short, clear bursts, and adapted when plans failed. It was chaotic, yet strangely effective. And when they reached the damaged section, when running was no longer enough, Elias had stopped. He had stood between a failing bulkhead and a group of trapped workers, manually stabilizing a system meant to be handled by machines. His hands had shaken, his breathing hard, but he had not moved away, not even when the danger was clear. That was the moment Surith truly understood. Humans did not fear danger the way others did, they expected it. Now, as the stars passed slowly outside the viewport, Surith heard footsteps behind her. She did not turn immediately. She already knew who it was. Elias stopped a respectful distance away. Humans understood space in ways many species did not. He waited. "You are healed," Surith said finally, her voice calm. "Yes," Elias replied. "The med team was very thorough." She turned to face him. He looked tired but alert. Human eyes always seemed alert, even at rest. "I have reviewed the reports," Surith said. "Every analysis, every recording." Elias gave a small nod. "Then you know what happened?" "Yes," she said, "and more than that, I know why you ran." He did not answer right away. Humans, she had learned, often waited before speaking when something mattered. "I owe you an apology," Surith continued. "When I first pursued you, I believed you were afraid of me. I believed fear was weakness." Elias tilted his head slightly. "A lot of people think that." "My people especially," Surith said. "We believed we had grown beyond fear, that we were enlightened." "And now?" Elias asked. "Now I see that we simply never needed it," she said quietly. The words felt heavy but true. Fear to humans was not shameful, it was information. A warning shaped by thousands of generations who survived only by paying attention. Running was not surrender, it was strategy. Surith folded her hands behind her back, mimicking a human posture she had observed. "When the emergency began, most of us waited for confirmation. For certainty, you acted without it." Elias shrugged lightly. "Certainty usually comes too late." "That is what frightens the council," Surith admitted, "and what amazes them." He smiled faintly at that, but there was no pride in it, only acceptance. "You were silent after my answer," Elias said. "Back then, I wondered what you were thinking." Surith met his gaze. "I was realizing that the galaxy had misunderstood your species." She gestured toward the station behind them. "We built our civilizations in safety, stable worlds. Predictable threats. When we encountered humanity, we judged you by our standards." "And we didn't measure up," Elias said. "You exceeded them," Surith corrected. "We mistook caution for fear, movement for panic, running for weakness." She paused, then said the words that had stayed with her since the crisis. "But humans only run so they can choose when to stop." Elias did not speak, but his expression softened. The station announcement system chimed softly, signaling the end of emergency protocols. Life continued. Surith felt something unfamiliar settle in her chest, respect, perhaps, or humility. "The council has asked me to deliver a message," she said. "Oh," Elias replied. "They wish to revise humanity's classification," Surith said. "Not as a fragile species from a dangerous world, but as adaptive specialists." "That sounds very official," Elias said. "It is," Surith said, "but there is more." She hesitated, then continued. "They wish to learn from you, not your weapons, not your ships, your instincts." Elias let out a quiet breath. "That might be harder than you think." "I believe you," Surith said. "Instinct cannot be downloaded." They stood in silence for a moment, watching a cargo vessel drift past the viewport. "Why did you really stop that day?" Surith asked. Elias looked away toward the stars. "Because people were behind me," he said simply. "Running only works if someone survives." That answer settled something deep within her. Surith straightened. "Then I will answer your question as well." "My question?" Elias asked. "Yes," she said, "though you never spoke it aloud." She met his eyes again. "Why did my silence matter to you?" Elias thought for a moment. "Because silence means someone is listening." Surith inclined her head, a Viorlian gesture of acknowledgement. "Then listen to this." She spoke slowly, carefully. "The galaxy is full of species who have never been chased, never hunted, never forced to adapt or die." Her voice grew steadier. "You come from a world that never stopped testing you. And you survived not by being the strongest, but by being the most aware." Elias turned fully toward her now. "We will no longer ask why humans run," Surith said. "We will ask how they know when to stop." For the first time since they met, Elias smiled openly. "That," he said, "is a good question." They stood together as the station lights dimmed to night cycle. Outside, the stars kept moving, uncaring and endless. Surith no longer felt small beneath them. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy, had not dominated it, had not demanded fear or obedience. They had simply arrived, carrying the lessons of a dangerous world and shown everyone else what survival really meant. And for once, the galaxy was quiet, not in confusion, but in understanding.